When I was a kid, I had the opportunity to see the inside guts of the modern telephone system, tagging along with my father to work. It wasn't glamorous, and it wasn't fantastically high tech by today's standards, but it was the absolute peak of copper wiring based communications right before computers started using them, uh, networked lines for themselves. During the brief window between human switchboard operators and the silent dawn of fiber optics, every community had a discreet, nearly windowless building that served as the terminus for the landline telephone network. Before we had these mechanical beasts, every single call was routed by a human operator pulling a plug on a board. But as towns grew, the sheer volume of voices threatened to collapse the system. The shift to automation actually started because of an undertaker in the late 1800s named Almond Strauger. He was convinced that a local switchboard operator, who happened to be the wife of a competing undertaker, was routing his potential clients to her husband. So out of sheer frustration and paranoia, Strauger invented the first automatic telephone exchange. He created a machine that eliminated the human middleman altogether, setting the stage for the massive building-sized calculating engines that followed. That invention evolved into the massive electro-mechanical switches that filled these buildings. It's vital to understand that this entire city-sized routing engine operated with a complete lack of computers. Sure, there were some computers used in diagnosing problems, but that was about it. There were no CPUs, no software, no lines of code running the communication system itself. When you picked up a phone in 1985, you weren't querying some digital server. You were closing a physical electrical circuit. That hum of the dial tone was the building telling you it was ready for receiving your call. And as you spun that rotary dial, releasing it to click back to zero, each pulse sent a raw voltage spike down the line. Every single click literally commanded a metal arm inside this building to physically step up and rotate and move around, hunting for an idle circuit to connect to. Everything about this was physical and mechanical, even though you were just at home tapping a button or turning a little dial. Your phone number wasn't just an account number assigned by a database. It was a set of physical coordinates. The first three digits, known as the exchange prefix, pointed to a specific physical building in your town. And the last four digits pointed to an exact pair of metal pins on a massive rack inside that building. When someone called you, a wave of cascading mechanical arms physically built a copper bridge, you could say, across the city, locking into the place just to ring the bell on your wall. Think about it. An individual pair of copper wires came in all the way to this building in your town from every single house and business in the town or in the region. When you multiplied that by an entire town, it resulted in a truly colossal set of wires routed into every spare gap in these facilities. A phone call was just literally connecting physical sets of wires. The microphones and amplifiers pushed the audio across the line into the distribution center and then back out to the other caller. To handle this load, the cables had to travel under our feet and sometimes over telephone poles. But beneath the streets were massive lead-sheathed cables as thick as a man's arm, carrying thousands of individual copper pairs. And none of this relied on the local power grid. If you remember the 70s or 80s, you'll remember that when a massive storm would knock out the power to your entire neighborhood, the landline phone still worked. Sure, there was also weather-related glitches with the landline phone system, but you could sit in the pitch black and dial out, and that's because these nearly windowless buildings housed entire floors dedicated to lead-acid batteries. And the phone company generated its own 48-volt direct current over its own lines that went to every house and business in town. It was a parallel infrastructure, completely isolated and designed to survive anything. Today, the internet loves the concept of liminal spaces. Those eerie transitional places where you aren't meant to linger. These buildings themselves were the ultimate electronic liminal space. Nothing stayed here. Millions of voices, secrets, private conversations just passed through the copper. The rooms themselves were deafening, like a dystopian library of rattling switches and buzzing relays and 12-foot metal racks from floor to ceiling. And the air inside smelled of warm ozone, dust, and machine oil, yet physically, they were entirely empty, except for the occasional maintenance man walking the floor or a kid like me watching it all happen. For a brief time, some of these facilities actually featured nice customer service areas where people used to walk in to drop off payments for their telephone bills. But by the turn of the millennium, the doors were permanently locked, turning them into lifeless, forbidden zones. There was no one in attendance and no way to interact with the public. Those nearly windowless buildings are still there today, but now they hold probably a filing cabinet-sized box of fiber optic machines with barely a hum. No switches, no relays. No one's going in to patch a broken wire or hunt down an obscure bug in the machine anymore. The foundation of everything we have today was laid by men in the 70s who strung poles, who woke up in the middle of the night to fix rain-soaked junction boxes on the side of a road. They built microwave relay towers that bounced calls from hilltop to hilltop across the continent. They built this massive techno-mechanical grid just so we could chat with a friend or place a mail order request. But hobbyists pushed it further. They looked at this colossal liminal network and realized it was ripe for the next stage of evolution. It just needed to be plugged into a computer. More in another episode on what that ended up looking like. Thanks for watching. Check out some of my back catalog on other inventions, technology, great minds of the past, and how we can adapt and use some of that great knowledge and inspiration in the future. Omni out.